Pregame.com.
Welcome back to Pregame.tv. I'm joined in studio by Bryan Leonard, Ken Thomson, SportsX Radio. I'm Marco D'Angelo. We're going to break down some college and NFL action for this week. We're going to get things started off with Florida State, Wake Forest. This is going to be Bryan's play. Before we get to it, I want to kick something out to you two guys. Obviously, Alabama's the #1 team in the country.
Wait. The jacket, please. Did I turn around because Bryan Leonard's wearing a jacket on a video? What's up with that?
Well, you know what? And you don't have a jacket?
It's first for everything right here.
I'd make a comment, but Ken's about 5 sizes smaller than I am, so.
But what I wanted to say about Alabama and Florida State, we know Alabama's the #1 team in the country, defending national champ, undefeated. But there's a lot of question between who's really #2. You guys, is it Oregon? Is it Florida State? Who do you think's the better of the two teams with what you've seen? Obviously, Florida State had a great game last week against Miami, but we all know Miami was counterfeit.
In my opinion, Oregon State's a little bit better. But
Oregon, you mean?
Oregon's a little bit better. But we'll find out a little bit when Oregon plays Stanford this Thursday. We're taping on Wednesday. So I'm going to make statements about that game in my write-up for this. So if you're watching this after Oregon plays, and I look bad, it's only because we did this beforehand and not afterwards. We still may look bad, but...
There you go. What do you think?
I'll tell you what. Oregon struggled with Washington. Washington turned the ball over 3 times. Washington did outgain Stanford by 210 in Palo Alto, but Stanford's very physical. They get one of their front 7 back. They lose another one, so they have 6 of their front 7. Shane Scove in the middle. Hey, UCLA could not move the ball on Stanford. UCLA also played Oregon to a standstill, 14 apiece at Autzen Stadium. A lot determines on that game Thursday in Palo Alto.
Let's see. Florida State, Winston, he had an okay first half, not a great half, but then second half, we saw the Winston that we saw. Maybe, a little bit of the nerves, big game, which he had already had a big game against Clemson, so that shouldn't have been the case. But good players make adjustments, and they took care of business in the second half. Now you go this week, Wake Forest. Do you concern yourself with a letdown after such a big game, or are the stakes too high for Florida State?
I think that's why the line is in decent shape right now, 34.5, 35, because people expect the letdown. But keep in mind, as we're talking on Wednesday, and not Thursday, Oregon is playing Stanford. Now, if you take a look at the schedule remaining for Florida State, they don't play anybody. The best team they play is Florida. Florida may, at that point of the season, have a losing record. Florida's not a very good team right now. So they're not going to be gaining any points by beating up on bad teams. So what do they have to do? They have to run up scores, especially if Oregon wins. If Oregon loses, maybe it's a different story. But if Oregon continues to win, they're going to have to blow people out.
So basically, you definitely agree that if the two run the table, Oregon's schedule is going to leapfrog Florida State?
No question. The Pac-12, so much stronger than the ACC. Again, we're still wondering how good Clemson is, because we see Georgia was as kind of fraudulent themselves. So again, there was so much put on that opening game when the rankings came out with Georgia and Clemson. And again, I'm just wondering if Florida State could beat Ohio State. I'm not a Big Ten guy, and I know everybody's bashing the Big Ten, but I'd like to see Florida State play Ohio State. I think the Buckeyes can hang.
Yeah, I watch Ohio State every week. My wife's a huge Ohio State fan. It's the only time we can actually watch a game together. Ohio State's dominant. They've got the deepest quarterback crew in the country. I mean, they're even playing a freshman, a huge quarterback, at 250, playing third string, and he's getting a lot of time now. So Ohio State's not only winning, they're going very deep on their roster and doing it.
All right, you know what, Bryan? This is your free pick. Why don't we make it official?
As my friend Teddy Cover says, if we're going to play it, we're going to lay it. And we're laying a lot of points here with Florida State against Wake Forest. Wake Forest a couple weeks ago played at Miami. A lot of people thought Miami was looking past them a little bit. Maybe Miami's not nearly as good as what we've seen. They've played a very weak schedule so far this season. And so Wake Forest, I got to take a little bit off of their credit because of that. But they have not played that well. And Florida State, as I mentioned, they're in a situation where they got to run up scores, and they definitely have the offense to do it, and they may have the best defense in the country. Just talent galore on that defensive end. And when you're taking a look at this line and you see how many points it is, keep in mind they're expected to have basically 65 plays in this game. The Seminoles are averaging more 0.51 more points per game than they allow. And if you include the Wake Forest deficit in there, you're looking at like 33.5 points offense and defense. You're not including special teams. You're also not including running up the score here. So we take a look at this. Seminoles are averaging 4.2 yards per play, more than the opposition is what they're going up against here against Wake Forest. When you add the two together, they're just going to dominate this game. I don't see a letdown here. I'm laying it with Florida State. It's down 34.5, 35 right now. We may even see a 34 as people get involved thinking this is going to be a letdown. We're going to lay the points with Florida State.
All right, there you have it. Bryan says lay the wood with Florida State on Saturday. We're going to be back next. We're going to go SEC. We're going to take a look at Auburn at Tennessee. That's up next. Pregame.tv.